Hakadosh Boker Tov. I wanted to share with you an incredible idea that I saw in the Parashah. In our Parashah, it brings down that Noach has to gather in the animals to the Teva in order to save what's left of whether it's going to be human society, which is him, his wife, children, and then also the animals. And it says, Mikola be'ema teorah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and he tells Noach, from all the pure animals, you have to take seven, which means 7 groups, 7 pairs, a male and a female. And from the animals which are not pure, they're going to be shnaim, it's going to be 2, a male and a female. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh comes and he deduces, why does it say tikach lecha? You have to take for yourself. He learns 2 different things. The mitzvah was that Noach himself has to go and do the tedious work of gathering together all the 7. However, though, they won't come on their own. But the other ones which are coming to be saved will come on their own. But it says later on in Pasuk Tet, Shnaim ba'u el hateva, which means the animals which came to be saved, they came on their own, because it was going to be for saving their own selves that they shouldn't become extinct. But the extra animals, Noach had to go himself and work on it, to go and to gather together all these animals. And the same thing is written in the words of the Ramban over there, that Mikol min v'min zug echad me'atzmam came. So from each species, one group came, one pair, Zachar u'Nekeva, and then Noach came and he had to bring another 6 pairs from the ones which are going to be the extra animals. Now, says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, we learn an extra thing. What does it mean when it says tikach lecha, that you're taking for yourself? It was permitted for Noach to do whatever he needed with these animals. Just like it says, now you're not going to have a question, who permitted Noach to bring a korban afterwards, a sacrifice of the animals without the permission of Hashem? He didn't ask for Hashem, but rather the fact that right now we were going to need these animals, he says, tikach lecha, it's for your purpose, it's yours. You could do whatever you want with these extra animals. And now we understand why it says afterwards, he brought the sacrifice, and it says HaKadosh Baruch Hu smelled the fragrance. It was so beautiful. And then he says that I'm not going to do any more. And then he permitted them also to eat from the animals afterwards. The Ramban comes and he says something incredible, very important. The 7 that they came, which are the pure animals that were for the sacrifice afterwards, they didn't come as a miracle. He had to be litroach be'atzmo b'mitzvah. When you're doing a mitzvah, you have to work for it. You have to go, you have to toil, you have to go do your efforts. That's what he wanted. If you're doing a mitzvah, it's not going to be a miracle that's going to happen. But the opposite. The importance is that you suffer, that you're working, that you're toiling, that's what you have to do, something tedious. That is how you do a mitzvah. Now, this is exactly what's also written in Parashat Chayei. Where do you see this in Parashat Chayei? Perek Avdal Pasuk Tetzayin, it says, Vatere da'ayna. She came down, right? And this is talking about now when it's Rivka and the Eved, Eliezer, Eved Abraham. And it says, Vayarot Eved, the Eved, Eliezer comes running towards her. Why did he come running towards her? Rashi says he saw the water come up towards her. The water came up. It was a miracle. Comes the Ramban and it says, it doesn't say Vatishav, that she draw the water forth. She didn't draw it forth. Why not? Because it was a miracle. But then what happened was afterwards, it does say Vatishav. Why does it say Vatishav? So therefore, the reason why those Naim Torah says the same thing. The first time around, it was for her. Since it was for her and she wasn't doing a mitzvah, the miracle happened and the water rose towards her. And that's how Eliezer saw, this is a tzaddik, this is something great, right? And therefore, what? He came running towards her. When she was now doing the mitzvah of giving water to the camels and everyone else, now it's a mitzvah, now she had to draw the water. Because now she's doing the mitzvah. When you're doing a mitzvah, it's different. And if you remember, I told you once that this was explanation to do with Esav also. This is the Maharal Miprad. The Maharal Miprad comes and he says, how do we understand that Esav is told by his father, go capture, go slaughter an animal for me. Esav goes, what does Rivka do? She comes and she takes the clothing of Esav and she puts it on Yaakov Avinu. What were these clothing? These were the clothing that he stole from Nimrod. He killed Nimrod. That basically all the animals would come running towards you. Was it like camouflage? They looked like animals, so they would come towards you. And then he would kill them single-handedly very easily. Question is, if he's going hunting now for an animal, right? Why doesn't he take the clothing? In 2 seconds, he's going to trap the animal. He's going to bring it back to his father, and he's done. Why did he leave it at home? And it had to be davka by his mother because he didn't believe his own wives or he didn't believe anybody else, and therefore it was by his mother. And Rivka comes, puts it on Yaakov, and that's it. What's going on? Answers Maharal, Miprag, that even an Esav Rasha understood that when I'm going to do the mitzvah of Kibud Aveim, I have to work for it. It's not going to come easy. And that's why he came back and he was tired, right? He was very, very tired. Why? Because he had to work for it. He went out to actually really hunt. He didn't go to get it easy. He's doing a mitzvah of Kibud Aveim. And that's where we see the same Yesod. So now he comes and he says, we see this also at the end of the parasha. Where do we see this Yesod at the end of the parasha? It says that Shem and Yefet, they took the clothing and they covered, right, their father. Because their father got drunk and he was without clothing. Everyone knows the story with Ham, right? He got drunk. So what happened? It says, it doesn't say Vayikhu, that they took the clothing. Ela Vayikach, that he took it. Why? Because since Shem did much more of it than Yefet, he strengthened in himself in the mitzvah more. He was zocheh to a talit shel mitzit shel tzitzit. So you see two people doing the same mitzvah. They're coming backwards, covering, that way they don't see the nakedness of their father, and they come and they're covering their father with the clothing. Right now, what happens? You see from the fact that it's written Vayikach that he did it with more of a zest, more of an enthusiasm. So what happened? He gets a bigger reward. What's the reward? So the rabbi comes, there's a beautiful Torah that he comes and he says like this. He says that the difference between them is like life and death. Why? Because we got the talit shel mitzvah. When do we put on a talit? We put on a talit when we're alive. What did Yefet get? That when they die, they get kvura. By the Milchemet Gog and Magog, when there's going to be the big war, they're going to bury their dead. So that's going to be after death. So you see from here the difference between when you overexert yourself and you come, right, and you do a mitzvah with enthusiasm and you do it, is between life and death. Now from here we see a musar gadol. The musar gadol is that when you're doing a mitzvah, you have to put all your enthusiasm, all your oomph, everything into it. We know the famous story of the wife of the Gaon of Vilna, that she made a deal with her friend, that they said that whoever goes up to Shamayim first, they have to come back in a dream and tell their friend, how was it? What's the rewards? And the friend came back to the wife of the Gaon of Vilna and she says, I can't explain to you even what it is, right? This reward, what it is in the world to come. And I'm going to explain to you one thing. You remember once we were standing in a certain place and we pointed, right? I pointed to you to show you where's the house of a rich person to go collect tzedakah from him, right? And that's what we went. We pointed. For that pointing, you don't know how much reward I got in the next world. To show you what it is, the power, the immense power of reward when a person comes and they do it. And Rav Dessler comes and he says, in Michtav Meliyahu, Chelik Gimel, page 14, he says like this, Ki klal ze ne'eman afilu al tzar koldu. This is even on any type of a suffering. Because in Shamayim they come, in the heavens they come, and they're going to pay attention, even the smallest thing of suffering. Just like a person comes, he puts his hand in his pocket, he want to take out $1, took out 5, or you want to take out 5, he took out 10 or 1, and he wanted to give tzedakah. Even on that, he comes on that side, look how much it is. And therefore, a person should understand that if he's going to add a little bit when doing mitzvot, it's going to be even 100 full time, right? It's going to be mamash thousands times more. The more that a person suffers, the more that he's going to get a reward. Because the more that they're suffering, the more that it's going to be even 100-fold, even more in the mitzvah that a person is going to be doing. So therefore, a person should come and say, listen, if all of a sudden now it becomes more difficult to do a mitzvah, even better, it's going to be more difficult to do a mitzvah. And this is a Yesod Gadol when we serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just like it says in Avot Rabbi Natan, Per Gimel Halacha Vav, he says like this, Tov lo la'adam davar echad betza'ar mimea berevach. If you're doing something, and you're doing it once, and you have to suffer to do it, it's difficult for you to do it. Beforehand, it was easy. Now it's difficult. That time that you did it with difficulties was 100 times greater than when you were doing it tranquilo, when we were doing it with all the tranquility and the peace and everything. You can't even understand the difference in not understanding than when you did it when you were in tranquility. Now the Maharal, he comes, he says even a bigger chidush. The Maharal is in Masechet Makot of Kav Gimel Mud Aleph, and he says that the Mishnah over there is talking about in Makot that we get reward for not drinking blood. Now, how many people like to drink blood? When was the last time? But we still get reward for not drinking blood. So says over there, just like the blood that a person is disgusted with it. If you come and you take yourself away from it, you refrain from it, you get reward. So therefore, arayot, immorality, or things that people love it. So imagine right now what's going to happen. That when a person's going to come, they're going to refrain from it. Imagine what reward they're going to get. So says the Maharal over there, there's two concepts of receiving reward. Number one, on the mitzvah in itself, and we don't know the reward. Number two, the schar sheyesh ala torach b'mitzvah, the reward that a person gets on the difficulties of doing a mitzvah, or that he has to pay money for doing a mitzvah. For sure, lefum tzara agra, according to the work, that's his reward. And the schar is according to what a person puts into it. Or the same thing with an averah. And he conquers his yetzer hara, he conquers the evil inclination not to do an averah. Imagine what a reward a person will get. So you see from here, look what it is. It says also in Parashat Akedah, we come and we say something incredible. And this is also Rav Desser. And he says like this, Avraham Avinu was in the midst of doing the Akedat Yitzchak, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, stop, I know that you're a God-fearing person. Avraham Avinu starts arguing with Hashem, no, but I have to do it, let me do it, I have to do a mitzvah. Hashem says, no, don't do it, back, forth. Finally he says, okay, fine, you know what? All of a sudden there's going to be an Oziel. There's going to be a ram that's going to come. Remember that ram, right? It's from Sheshet Yemei Bereshit, from the 6 days of creation. It starts coming and it gets stuck, tangled. Why? The Satan comes and it tangles, right? All his horns in the trees. He wasn't able to come. Avraham Avinu had to go and untangle him in order to bring him, slaughter him. And then we know that each one of the horns, for Mashiach, for this, for that. Incredible. What's going on here? You see from here that even though he was already prepared for Avraham Avinu from Sheshet Yemei Bereshit, Avraham Avinu had to fight for it. He had to argue with Hashem, say, no, but I have to bring something, which means that even though Hashem said, I know you're a God-fearing person and you would have slaughtered your son. Our Akedat Yitzchak was only finished when he brought the substitute. What was the substitute? The ram. He had to fight for that. He had to run and go and untangle it, and the Satan was stopping him, and he didn't come to him easily. He had to go with back and forth with Hashem. And then afterwards, he had to go and untangle him from the trees, bring him, slaughter him. Why? Because when you're doing a mitzvah, you have to do it with tircha, you have to do it with enthusiasm, with work. It's going to be difficult. A mitzvah is always difficult. Remember that my rabbis always used to tell me, if you come and you say, do something, right, and you see it's so easy, check if it's a mitzvah or not. Because a mitzvah is difficult to do. Because there's always a yetzer hara against it. If it's too easy, maybe it's a disguise. Maybe it's not a mitzvah. Because if not, it doesn't make sense. Why is it so easy? There's something there. Right? And a person has to pay attention to that. Listen to this Gemara Mesech Chagiga. The Gemara says in Daf Tet Amud Bet, what is the difference between a tzaddik and a rasha, or a person that comes and he serves Hashem, or he doesn't serve Hashem? He says, what? They're both tzaddikim. But he says you can't compare somebody that learns 100 times and somebody that learns 101 times. Says Rashi, even though they're both tzaddikim, this person, he served Hashem, and this person doesn't. Say the rabbis, Ribono Shel Olam. We're talking about somebody that came and he learned the Gemara 100 times. Not once, not twice, not 10, not 20, 50, 100 times. But the difference that he didn't exert himself to do 101 instead of 100, Shamayim Va'aretz, is a difference in the world. This one serves his God, and this one is somebody that doesn't serve his God. Rav Yerucham comes and he says, right, this is in Dat Chufma Musar, that all the Hatzlacha that a person has is only when they work, when they overexert themselves. Everything that came easy was lost as easy. Everything that came, if you want to have success, you have to work for it. You have to actually exert yourself for it. That's what you need. And Chazal come and they say something incredible. The Gemara Metzia Pevav Amud Aleph says, it says Pevav Amud Bet over there, it says like this. Rav Yudah says in the name of Rab, anything that Avraham Avinu did himself to the angels, Hashem did himself to Bnei Yisrael. Anything that he did with a messenger, so also HaKadosh Baruch Hu did through a messenger. Says Rav Eliyahu Lopian that he heard from the Saba Mikelim something incredible. Listen to these words. Says the Saba Mikelim, look how important it is to do mitzvot. Why? Because he says if Avraham Avinu himself would have brought the water to the Malachim, and it wouldn't have been done through a Shaliach, Hashem himself would have brought the water to the Bnei Yisrael, and we wouldn't have needed a Shaliach. Then what would have happened? There wouldn't have been the sin of the Mimeriva. And Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen would have came into Israel. What does that mean? We know that there wasn't water. And when there wasn't water, they went and Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock instead of spoke to the rock. That was all because that Avraham Avinu went and he didn't give the water himself. He brought it through a messenger. Because if he would have brought the water himself, we wouldn't have a lack of water in the desert. If we wouldn't have a lack of water in the desert, Moshe Rabbeinu wouldn't have done the entire concept of Mimeriva. Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron would have come into Eretz Yisrael, brought us into Israel, because they wouldn't have stayed on the outside. So you see from here, what is the difference? And you're doing a mitzvah yourself, or you're sending a messenger to do a mitzvah. You have to run to do a mitzvah. This is a Saba Mikelem. And we'll finish with a beautiful story with the Maharsha. We know that the Maharsha is on the back of every single Gemara. It's printed. It's loved by everybody. Especially there's Agadot Maharsha, even on the stories. And then there's also on the Pilpul of the Maharsha. He comes and he explains also. And he comes and the Maharsha was a rabbi in Avbetin in Austria. And in Lublin was a Maharam Lublin. He was the rabbi in Avbetin. He had a yeshiva. And there was another rabbi also called Rabbi Shimon Zev. He was the son of the Maharshal, Shulman Luria. And he also had a yeshiva. He was also a Rosh Yeshiva. Once there was a machloket between these two rabbis, the Maharam Lublin and Rabbi Shimon Zev. There was a machloket, an explanation in the Tosafot. It went to the students, and many times they go out of hand. So what happened was the students took it too far. They made a huge machloket in the city. So the rabbis, the heads of the boards of the city, they went and they said, that's it. They got rid of the two rabbis. They said, sorry to Maharam Lublin and to Rabbi Shimon Zev, we're firing you. That's it. They sent a letter to Maharsha in Austria that he should come to Lublin to become the rabbi. So the Maharsha accepted it, and he comes on Shabbat. The first Shabbat, he comes up and he says, I've got two questions. And one of them, I have an answer. And on the second one, I don't have an answer. The first question is, why would you think that I left Austria to come to Lublin? Austria is a much bigger city. It's much more important. I don't have an answer. But then there's a second question. Why would I receive such a position, right? And why would I leave Austria to come to Lublin? And on this, I do have an answer. When you have two big rabbis like the Maharam Lublin and Rav Shimon Zev right here, it's worth leaving Austria to come to Lublin just to have them here as part of my kahal. That's what that was. That was the Shabbat, the first Shabbat speech that the Maharsha came and he gave. After the Shabbat, the Maharsha calls in the board and he tells them, I decree to you as the rabbi of the city that the Maharam is going to become the rabbi of the city again in the Bedin. Reb Shimon Ze'ev has to move to Prague, and he's going to become a Rosh Yeshiva in Prague, and I am going back to Austria. And that's what he did. This is that he's the rabbi of the city. This is his psak. This is what he's doing, and there's nothing more to talk about. Imagine what this was. The Maharsha, if you think about it, he could have written a letter. He could have said, listen, Rabbi, listen, board members of the city, right? You guys are very important people, but you should know this is the way you're supposed to do it. Put him back as the rabbi of the city, as a Beddin, as a Rosh Yeshiva. The other one moves to Prague. He becomes Rosh Yeshiva in Prague. Everything comes beautiful. That's it. The Maharsha left his position. He left to go to Lublin, which is a danger that maybe they won't accept him back in Austria. He goes there. He moves everything as if to say that he's moving to Lublin. He does this entire show, and then he comes and he puts them back. What's going on? And the reason why is because when he understood that if he was going to do it without this work, it wouldn't have worked. He understood that he had to go through all this exertion, all this work, this toil, in order to make sure to put Shalom in its place, and that was the only way to make it work. And that's exactly what happened. He went back to Austria. Maharam Lublin became the Rabbin of Betin again, and the Rosh Yeshiva. The other one, Shimon Zev, he became the Rosh Yeshiva in Prague, and everything came on Mekomo, Yavo Shalom. They all came in peace. But from here, we learn what it is, the importance. Mitzvot, some people say, no, it's too difficult. The opposite. A mitzvah is supposed to be difficult. If it's too easy, it's not a mitzvah. And this many times I tell students, I tell people, they come, they want to go to a wedding, they want to be dancing around. It's very easy for them. But then the next morning, right, I also tell them, where were you for Shachrit? And this I also learned from my rabbi is very important. If you want to know what you just did was a mitzvah, mitzvah goreret mitzvah, v'avera goreret avera. One mitzvah causes another mitzvah. So if you went and you thought that you did a mitzvah last night and you were being misameach chatan v'kala and you were rejoicing and dancing around and doing everything and beautiful, what was the next thing that you did? The next morning you came to Shachrit on time, so then you know that the night before was a mitzvah. But if it was the next morning, you woke up and it was already past the time of Kriyat Shema, past the time of Tefillah, or even if it didn't, but you woke up very late and so then what? Was it really a mitzvah that you did last night? Think about it. Was it easy for you to do it or was it difficult for you to do? Because remember, a mitzvah is difficult to do. We have to exert ourselves to do mitzvah. Hopefully, Bezrat Hashem, I hope that we can internalize this message, whether it's of the Ramban or Chaim HaKadosh, whether it's going to be of the Maharal Prague and all the rest, in order to understand that there's immense reward for us when we come and we do mitzvot. And the more that we actually exert ourselves in doing it, the more reward we're going to get, and we don't understand even what it is, the reward for the mitzvot. Bezrat Hashem, Shabbat Shalom. Hatzlacha.